day 2. Here's my camp set up. A bit hot, just had a little lay down. There's my little table. There's cabins, lots of workers here. People out fishing. Here's the lovely toilets. BURKETOWN Caravan Park. $34. Powered site. Laundry. They tell me there's no unpowered sites. Don't know what that's about, but anyway. Here we go. Nice garden. On the back here we have a camp kitchen. There we go. Camp kitchen. People in here watching telly at night. Heard the news for the first time last night. Jesus, negative and gloomy. My God. Anyway, here we go. Camp kitchen. Let's go and have a look out here at BURKETOWN. Alright, here we go. Just went to the service station. Iced coffee. Started my bad habit of iced coffee again. Convenience store. Most of these shops shut for lunch. Yeah, so that's shut right now. That's pretty cool. It's got lots of different foods and stuff in there. Free Telstra phone. All the phones like these now are free around Australia. Main Street. Down there at the end you can see the pub. Dry as pretty, I think it's about 29 degrees during the day. Night gets down to probably, I don't know, 13, 14 maybe. Probably the warmest night I've had so far, last night. This is the community square, I'm not sure what they call it. But here there's free internet. Look how wide the roads are. We'll find out more about the history in a minute. There's the cop station, and next to that's the caravan park where I'm staying. Nice mural here. Barramundi, crocodiles, kangaroos. I've been on a bit of a roller coaster, like coming on the road from Normanton to out this way. I realised I could do the dirt, and I love doing the dirt, so I got all geared up for doing Hell's Gate. And then I woke up this morning and man, I was flogged from standing up yesterday, and that was only 65 k's of it, and I wasn't even standing the whole time. So then I was like, oh man, can I do this, you know? And then everyone's telling me, oh, be careful where you camp, there's like bad people, there's dogs, you know, creating all these extra fears. And I'm like, oh man. And so then I was at this petrol station a while back, and a dirty car came in. So I said to them, you just done that road? And they're, yeah, just done it. I go, what's the corrugation like? He's going, oh, it's crap. Nah, really, really bad, you know. And so I was like, oh, I can't do it. And then I go back to camp, and Don, who's my neighbour there, old Don, he used to drive trucks around on these dirt roads for years when he was younger. I was chatting to him, and he goes, oh, I'll give Hell's Gate a ring. So he rings Hell's Gate, and he's like, gets back to me, he goes, nah. He goes, no, you'll be fine. About 4 motorbikes come through a day. So I thought, all right, well, I'm feeling refreshed already. Tomorrow I'll go to Hell's Gate and take the next move from there. One step at a time. That's all you can do. Let's have a look in here, eh? They have some really good tours here, the Jagerly tours. But unfortunately right now the guy who drives the boat, the coxswain and the decky are both sick, and there's something wrong with the boat, so can't really do it right now. Check out that bird. Geez, there's some cool birds up here. They're so graceful, eh? Yeah, so they take you out for a yarn and look at the stars and tell you a bit about this place. In a few days, I reckon that should all be happening again. It's a bit hard in these remote towns, you know, when things break. It can take weeks for things to change over. You can also do this balloon flying. I heard it's up and around $290 to do it. So yeah, if you got the cash, I've heard it's really, really good. It's an afternoon thing that you can do. Comes highly recommended. Back at 1:30. Okay. Alright, we're in the information centre now. Indigenous protected areas in the Gulf. How good is that? With country comes great responsibility. Man, this should be the doctrine for the whole country. Turtle. Recognition of native title rights to the sea. Yeah.
First contact between Indigenous and non-Indigenous in the Gulf country occurred 160 years BC, which is, if you're non-Indigenous, it means before Cook. And when you think about it, that's before James was born, before his parents were born, before his grandparents were born, possibly before his great-grandparents were born. The Australian Maritime Museum recognises a gentleman by the name of Willem Jansoon as the first confirmed European to come here. There may have been others, but that's the one that's first recorded. And he sailed down the western side of the Cape into the bottom of the Gulf in a vessel called the Dufferin. And the Australian Maritime Museum has built a replica of that, and it's based in Perth. But I'm not sure where it is now, but say 2 years ago it was in Sydney Harbour, and for $130 you could do 2 hours around Sydney Harbour in Dufferin. So yeah, they were here 160 years before James. He sailed down that western side and he had interaction with about 8 or 9 different tribes, and most of them threw spears at him, but the last one traded with him. But then there was a big argument between the Indigenous and non-Indigenous. Fight broke out and people were killed on both sides, and the Dutch jumped in their ship and sailed back to Holland, and that's why we speak English and not Dutch.
Ah, and that was that?
That was pretty much it.
Wow.
And then you've got to wait till 1770 when James Cook came up the east coast, but Captain James Cook never set foot on Australia.
Right.
Because he wasn't a captain when he came to Australia, he was a lieutenant. He got promoted after he discovered Australia, or after he sailed up the east coast.
So how come they don't talk about the captain who was the captain?
I guess it was because it became more of an English colony in the first sense, so therefore it focuses on that area of history.
Right.
But yeah, the Dutch were here, and quite a few explorers. But anyway, after that you've got about 1801, Matthew Flinders sailed around Australia to do the circumnavigation to prove it was a single continent. And he stopped at a place called Swears Island, which is just off the coast of Burketown here, about 20 minutes. Yep. And that's where he was convinced that this was a single continent, and he wrote in his diary or his logbook that he would recommend that this continent be called Australia. So it's the first place, you're standing very close to the first place that the word Australia was ever mentioned when you're here. The only way to get closer is to go to Swears Island.
Yep. Which I've heard is amazing.
Yeah, it's great fishing out there, reef fishing. Yeah. It's very, very secluded and private. The next person to come along was a guy called John Stokes, and he went on to become Lord Admiral John Stokes. And he came here in 1842, and he wanted to get fresh water, so he parked his boat at the mouth of the Albert River, and he had his crew row all the way up to the Beams Creek to get fresh water, which is roughly about a 50k row. So his poor crew had to row about 50k. But then he was looking around and he could see endless grass It came right at the end of the wet season, and thought it was. He named it the Plains of Promise, and went back and reported in Sydney and Melbourne, a fantastic grazing country, and eventually it opened up into grazing and settlement. So,
right.
Yeah.
Gee, back in 1880.
Yes, and that was 1842. That was, and
Right.
then if you go fast forward to 1861. You've got two things happen. The American Civil War started and Burke and Wills passed away in the same year.
Right.
And then in 1865, two more things happened. The American Civil War finished and Burketown was officially named a town with a population of about 40 people.
40 people.
And the person who basically was nominated the town to the government to be recognised as a town was a guy called Robert John Townsend, who started the mercantile and shipping business here. And then from there, he eventually went to the coast and he founded Townsville, named after him.
Huh.
So, yeah, there's a lot more history.
Oh, so Burketown was established before Townsville?
Yeah, it was going to be the northern port for all of Australia.
Ah, rightio. And yeah, because the streets are really wide.
Yeah. I don't know.
What's that about?
I don't think that comes from the 1800s. I think that just happened later on. But it reached a population of somewhere around the vicinity of 400, I think. But
right.
Darwin Harbour was later developed, and it became. If you look at with Burketown, so 1865 it was declared a town, which is only about 4.5 years after Burke and Wills passed away.
Yeah.
Then there was a meatworks started only about 3 years after that, and they were shipping canned beef to Asia. It was quite busy port, and it was opened up to grazing, etc. But then probably, where would that put us? I'm not sure how many years later. Darwin Harbour had been mapped, but it was determined that that was going to be a much better harbour and closer to Asia. So it basically was one of the reasons that Burketown started to subside. But the other main reason was they got what they call Gulf fever here. Nobody really knows what it was. There is some supposition that it might have been a form of malaria, but Burketown is the home of Australia's largest mass grave. Wow.
What, like a flu or something?
Well, they think it was malaria, but they're not sure.
Yep.
There are records it's recorded that there was about 250 people died. However, I have seen other historians argue that it was significantly less.
Okay, but still a lot in one time.
That it may have been only 25.
Right.
So there's no way of validating it.
Yeah.
And the locations of the graves are not marked.
So
or
it's
the
hard
grave
to
is
know.
not marked. It's out at the cemetery.
Yep.
But it's not marked.
Right. And what's it like living in Burketown? Like, how long have you been here?
Well, I'm only here from the tourist season from literally about 16th of April to 16th of November.
Yeah.
80% of our visitors come in just 3 months, June, July, August.
Yep.
And that's simply because it's cooler and it's drier.
Yeah.
And you have issues with the heat and issues with rain and off-road travel in the wet season. So but yeah, it's nice and quiet. The lovely wide streets. Rush hour is 2 cars. Plenty of parks, no matter where you are. Yeah. And you can see the Milky Way from your doorstep. And you've got some of Australia's largest aggregate of salt pans. So if you really want solitude, there's a couple of million hectares out there with nobody in it. Oh, nice one.
Oh, nice one. And what's the population now of Burketown?
It's somewhere between 170 and 230. It's always a little bit transient because there is no high school here.
Right.
So some people go with their kids to, say, Mount Isa for high school, or they send their kids with relatives. Some people go and work in the mines for a while, or in Cloncurry or Townsville or whatever, etc., and then come back. So there are some extended families that sort of shift around a bit, but yeah, somewhere in the vicinity of the 200 mark, sometimes a bit below, sometimes a bit above.
Yeah, wow. Oh, cool. What? No way. Oh, no way. No way. Hard in the dirt where you got to go off to the side where it's really thick sand, and I ended up in the thick part. And so I'm standing up and it's just going everywhere. I thought, I'm definitely going. And it's just like winding everywhere, and I'm just doing what you got to do. Just keep forward, relaxed, and standing up. And then all of a sudden I'm on the tar and it's all good. But I don't think I caught it, damn it.